AC, Ariella's 50 years old. Tell me, how did it all begin?
It began in 1966. My dear late father was a master tailor in Carnaby Street, and my brother Aristos was a graduate of London College of Fashion. I was still at school in my last year, or yeah, about there in the seventh, in the sixth form, about to go to university, and my brother used to make all these sort of fuddy-duddy couture outfits for couturiers. And one day in the summer of '66, when Carnaby Street, this was in Carnaby Street, number 45 Carnaby Street, and I said to my brother Estes, why don't you stop making all these fuddy-duddy couture outfits and not make something really crazy for the young kids on the street? He said, that's not a bad idea. So he went down Berwick Street Market, bought some cloth, knocked up about 10, 15 dresses. Me and my hippie friends painted the first floor, this premises in Carnaby Street, the entrance up to the first floor, in the most psychedelic colours, and we called it Aristos Girl Shop, and we opened a retail shop on the first floor in Carnaby Street with 15 dresses. Well, being the salesman, I sold all 15 dresses in the first day. By lunchtime, Aristos got the money, went down Berwick Street Market, bought some more cloth, worked all night, so tomorrow, the next day, we had 20 dresses. And that's how we started trading. In the first week, we took £300. We both looked at each other and said, shh, this is where the money is, right? And because the average salary in those days was £20 a week. Well, we two young boys just took £300 in the first week. It was great. And we started selling from that little shop in Carnaby Street. After that, we bought a shop in Newburgh Street, Vince Green's old shop in Newburgh Street. And Vince's was one of the first gay men's shops that existed, but he was there for years. And this fashion explosion was happening, and we needed a ground floor premises. He eventually sold us his shop, so we opened our first shop called Blueshp. And then from there, we opened another shop in Carnaby Street at number 31 Carnaby Street. And then we opened another one further down, and we opened up in Oxford Street. We opened up two in Oxford Street. The next thing we knew is there was a lady called Rita Specterman who had just looked in and stopped the shop in the King's Road and had a chain of shops. And she came in and she wanted to buy dresses from us to sell in her shops. So I said, okay. I said to her, but I can't give them to you straight away. My brother's got to make them. She says, how long would you like? 2 weeks? I said, 2 weeks, I can make you 2 dozen. She said, all right, she says, I'll have 2 dozen, right? So she gave me a deposit, paid me £4, and that lady, Rita Specterman, eventually became, they were Worth, then they became Arcadia. They were the biggest retailer in the country. She bought from us for 25 years till she died. And when she died, she was buying 2,000 at a time.
Wow.
And that's how our wholesale division started. Bless her cotton socks, Rita Specterman, a lovely lady. And then we had wholesale and retail. We opened up in Great Portland Street and in Mortimer Street with showrooms. Our first factory was in Great Pulteney Street, which is about 100 metres from Eros in Piccadilly Circus. Then we opened up a head office in Marylebone. And so we had a wholesale and a retail business.
Fantastic. AC, can you share with us where's the business today, and particularly Ariella Couture?
The fashion business, Sir Eric, as you know, is like a wild horse. Okay, it needs a lot of controlling when you're riding, and Ariella has always been like a wild horse because we've always been up to the minute in fashion. We are 50 years in business. There's not a lot of fashion companies that can survive 5 years in business, let alone 50 years in business. And therefore, you have to believe in your product and understand your product. And we always believed in feminine fashion. We always believed in original fashion. One of the things about Ariella is that we're always original. We founded the Fashion Design Protection Association of Great Britain back in 1974, where designers could not protect their designs. We objected to this, and we called a meeting of the trade, and we formed the FDPA and actually changed the law. So we believe in originality of design, and we believe in the talent of a designer who is an artist. Therefore, That originality enabled us to be different from our competitors. And that's, in a sense, why we're still in business. Where are we today? Today, we're in the most exciting position because when we started the business, as you heard, I was still at school and I was the youngest employee. Now I'm the oldest. But what have we got? Lots of wonderful young talent in the business, all ex-fashion graduates who are in here in the business now with an awful lot of testosterone, and they're saying, AC, you've got a great company here. We know it's got history and heritage, but hello, we want to expand. Okay, so what we've decided to do is expand. So we're going back into retail. Although we had 11 branches back in the late 60s and 70s and early 80s, I lost my brother in 1985, unfortunately, and it was too much for me to have wholesale and retail. So we shut the retail down, carried on the wholesale, and in the meantime did very well, winning lots of awards, but we didn't have a retail division. So now we've reopened a retail division, and back a couple of years ago in 2012, we launched Ariella Couture, which is a design label. Now, there was a reason for that. We felt that there was a need for red carpet fashion, which wasn't £10,000 at a time, okay? So we pitched it between £500 and £4,000. And we put on a catwalk show. We were sponsored by RBS at their Bishopsgate headquarters. And to our great surprise, it received incredible response. Celebrities loved wearing it. Whenever they wore it, they got papped and they got press coverage. And we realized that our analysis was correct. There is definitely a demand for glamorous, attractive, feminine, but original fashion with a twist. Okay, and the twist that Ariella always gives is we give contemporary fashion that femininity, that enjoyment to wear. A woman will only wear something if she feels good in it, if it makes her feel good. And we like to create that in women. So now with the success of Ariella Couture and the number of celebrities that have worn it, Amanda Holden, Darcy Bustle, Michelle Rodriguez. Michelle Rodriguez is a great story. She wore our dress at the Hollywood, the Victoria and Albert Hollywood Glamour Awards, okay? And she got papped more than anybody else in our permanent Swiss dress. So I'll tell you how that came about. Our designer's designing it downstairs, and he's showing it to me. And I said, let me see the back. So he turned it. And as he turned it, it swished. I said, I love that swish. I love that swish. Give me that swish. It's impossible. So it can't be impossible. So we called the senior pattern cutter over. And we engineered the dress so whichever way you stand, it always looks like you just spun round. The press absolutely loved it. So that's the kind of fun we have with fashion. Okay, been a dream, and Ariella's never paid a celebrity to wear its dresses. So that is great endorsement, because marketing nowadays, I believe, is about celebrity endorsement. Celebrities sell everything now, don't they? And we've been very fortunate. And on the back of Ariella Couture, right, because you're not going to sell an awful lot of dresses between, 1,000, 1,500, 2,000. We created Ariella London. Ariella London is our own exclusive retail brand, which is pitched between £150 and sort of £750. Much more affordable, beautiful, commercial, feminine styles. And we've started in retailing now, and we've got 15 branches now. We've got a huge flagship store in Brent Cross. We're looking at having 30 branches by this time next year. And we'll be a retail brand as well as a wholesale brand.
AC Ariella, still a family business after all those years?
Yes, it is. I'm delighted to tell you. The family's a lot bigger now, not only with my own 4 children, but the family of Ariella has always been its staff as well. Okay, but so far as immediate family is concerned, my eldest son Alexander has an IT company. He does all our IT work, computers, websites, social media, which is extremely useful nowadays, for marketing. My second son, Nicholas, is a solicitor, and he's the in-house solicitor for the firm. My daughter, Lana Marie, is the creative director. She's on maternity leave at the moment, gone off and had a little grandchild for me, which is wonderful, Zachary. And my younger son, Marcus, is the marketing director, which is great because he's a young version. Well, he looks like I did in those days. I actually had some hair, you know. But from that point of view. But, you know, we have the heads of department now, which are staff, young staff, as I said to you earlier, fashion graduates. And we are just one big family here. It's wonderful.
And Daisy, what's the main message of the Ariella brand? And has that changed over the years?
Yes, it's changed enormously because of social media. What's happening to fashion? Fashion, the world is getting smaller all the time, okay? The internet has shrunk the world enormously. And if you go to a catwalk show with your wife and you see something beautiful, she has to wait 6 months in order to buy it before it's in the stores. The new motto for Ariella is, see it now, buy it now, wear it now. In other words, we're giving people instantaneous fashion. We're doing a catwalk show this September at London Fashion Week, and it's going to be 5 decades of Ariella. And we're taking some of our best looking shapes from the 60s, 70s, the 80s, the 90s, the noughties, and so on. And we're creating a fusion collection, taking all those looks, bringing them up to date, giving one collection. And the selling point is going to be, you're watching the catwalk show, you're going to have an iPad, you like a garment, press the button, you've got it tomorrow.
And AC, when you're thinking about design, are you also thinking about your marketplace, or is design something which is separate to the commercial aspect of your market?
What an interesting question. What an interesting question. The answer's got to be, it's got to be both. It's got to be both. I'll never forget when we were kids, as I said to you, back in Carnaby Street, and my brother used to come up with a design, and I used to get the sample, and it was my job to go up and down Oxford Street and Bond Street and everywhere else and come back with a wad of orders so he could buy the cloth and put them into production. And on many an occasion, I used to say to him, Ari, I don't like that cloth. I like the style, but that's the wrong cloth. He'd say, you're the salesman, I'm the designer, you go and sell what I tell you. I said, okay. But I used to get some swatches with me. And I used to go to the buyers, show them the dress. They said, you want to buy it like that? I said, well, we're not sure about the print. How about this? And they said, oh, that's much better. We'll have 100 pieces in that. We'll have 50 pieces in that. I used to come back. I used to come back with a wad of orders. And Aristotle used to say, hey, you did well. Got all these orders. I said, but not in your design. In your design, but in the cloth, I reckon. So the answer, that long-winded story tells you that if you don't want to please your market, you may not have a business. So however devoted you are as a designer, you'll not make money. And that way you're not going to have bread on your plate unless you understand that you've got to satisfy your market. So it's both things.
Can you share something of your supply chain and manufacturing process around your brands?
Well, we manufacture at the moment, we've got some wonderful manufacturing units that work for us, and they're all SEDEX approved, and they're all compliant with all the sort of codes of practice that exist, not only from our own clients, but we've got our own Ariella code of practice. But our sources are in China. A lot of our hand-beaded dresses come from India. We also have huge production in Romania. And we have mass production plants in Sri Lanka. So those are the sources that we
AC, you've mentioned you're a founder member of British Fashion Council. Can you share with us some of the background of your role in British Fashion Council?
The whole fashion explosion started in the 60s with Carnaby Street and the King's Road, as you know. After that, there was a huge demand for British products. So companies from overseas were coming, they wanted to buy the British look, okay, that we were pioneering in the world. Then sprang up what are called trade fairs, international trade fairs. We had them at Olympia, we had them at Earl's Court, and they were run by trade fair organizers. And we also had the designers. So we were all showing together at Olympia or Earl's Court. But the designers wanted to show nearer the season so they can get their designs right. Mainstream companies, in other words, people that supplied the mass of the high street, wanted to show earlier so they had longer lead times. And then we had the exhibition organizer who didn't care about one or the other and just put on the show when they can get the venue at the cheapest possible price. So we went mad. A lot of the exhibitors went mad, and Ariella has always been quite vociferous in the interest of the trade. We had meetings, and we formed what's called the mid-season collections. So with an old mate of mine, Laurie Lewis, formed a company. I didn't form a company, Laurie did, with Neville Book, and they started 4 mid-season shows a year. And we were showing quick deliveries. Didn't suit the designers at all, but it suited some people. We then said, there's something wrong here. And we then formed a body called FIAG, which is the Fashion Industry Action Group. And the idea was to look at how we can represent our industry. And we came to the conclusion, and in fact, I wrote the paper that said that designers and mainstream are 2 different animals. We're serving 2 different customers. We do not need to show at the same time. Okay? But we said the exhibition organizers are a 3rd element, which are a spanner in the works. We need to own our own show. But even before we do that, we need to have one body that can represent us. And we formed the British Fashion Council. And Cyril Kern was the first chairman, and I was on it right from the beginning. And then from then on, as you know, the BFC grew. And the idea was that the British Fashion Council would be the shop window of British fashion. It would be where our young designers could be really given the chance to put their stuff on a catwalk and, to the admiration of the world, bring in more demand from across the world to buy British products. Mainstream companies would then cash in on that demand, which is exactly what's happened. And the BFC has done a fantastic job, I think you'll agree, in raising the profile of British fashion to be absolutely now on a par with London, Paris, certainly Milan and New York.
Yeah, amazing.
So that's great, and it's one of my proudest achievements to have been a part of that from the beginning.
AC, has your business ever crossed into other product categories other than the original proposition?
Back in Carnaby Street, in our first shop, when I was a young salesman, this American couple came in and bought a lot of dresses for his wife. And he said, do you do any menswear? And I said to him then, in 1969, I said, when we get the women's wear right, we're going to go into menswear. We're still getting the women's wear right. Okay. The answer to your question is not yet. We're just now building up the Ariella brand. Okay, now, don't forget, we haven't been promoting the Ariella brand as such for 25 years. Now that we're back in retail, now that we're making Ariella a high-profile brand again, Ariella Couture has sought after luxury brand, and we're spending money on this, hundreds of thousands of pounds. Throughout 2015, we sponsored the Oscars and the Grammys and the Emmys and the Golden Globes on UK television, on Sky and E! Channel. We had over 3,200 TV commercials. So we're building up the brand, we're promoting the brand. Now, you know what happens when you establish a brand. Of course you can branch out, and we have every intention of doing that. We're not ready for it yet. But where we will branch out, of course, will be in handbags. It will be in various other elements of fashion, probably into some very upmarket tailoring, and also into some very sort of evening wear, knitwear, because we have the sources, and our mainstream division already does that, but we haven't brought that into the Ariella brand yet. It will do gradually.
And you've talked earlier on about some of the talent you have in the various divisions of the company. What about any tools that you use in the business, like QC tools or any management tools? Are these prevalent within Ariella's culture?
The greatest marketing tool at the moment is social media. social media. And Ariella.com is our website. I don't want people to get confused. It's Ariella.com, right? And that's the real place that everybody wants to promote because it's instantaneous. You can put an awful lot of product on there very quickly. It gets delivered the next day. And then you've got all the other stuff that I don't fully understand, like Twitter and Instagram and whatever the other things are. I'm sure there's lots. But blogging as well. You've got a blog nowadays, and Facebook. These are incredible things, and I understand we've got a very lively section of it. Every time I open it up, I get so confused. But it's for the young kids to do all that. But other tools, I know tools that will bore your listeners to pieces. I mean, you're talking about technological tools and garment specs. And do you know we produce garments now almost within half a centimeter spec? Okay. You can order any number of garments, and they have to come in within an absolutely agreed specification like that. So there's a lot of technology that goes into running a fashion business now. Well, hopefully nothing, because I'll be sitting on a beach somewhere, right? But
I don't think you'll ever sit on a beach.
I guarantee you I will sit on the beach playing chess with hopefully my eldest son, who's a very good chess player, Alexander. But in 5 years' time, Ariella will, please God, be established as a very, very well-known brand for cocktail, evening, and special occasion wear. It will have a retail presence not only across the UK, but across target areas in countries in Europe that we've identified have very good evening wear markets, such as Germany, such as Austria, such as Switzerland, Scandinavia, such as Norway, places we know that we've served for many, many years, and we know that they have good evening wear markets, and will be a recognizable brand and destination for that's something special.
Thanks for that. Maybe one final thing we should talk about. What about the many awards Ariella and yourself have had? We should just maybe capture some of these if we may.
Well, the three things that we've done at Ariella, which I'm very proud of because I've been personally involved in them, is one, the formation of the VFC and being part of that. And I would like to think during my 25 years there, I helped to steer it towards, to make a small contribution towards the success that it has achieved. Two is forming the Fashion Design Protection Association in 1974, which I said to you, at that time, copyright was not recognized in fashion design. And when we were getting copied, lawyers told us there's nothing you can do. A dress is not a work of artistic craftsmanship within the Copyright Act, so off you go, boys. But my dear late brother and I went and saw a young QC at the time called Hugh Laddie. And Hugh was very sympathetic to the passion that we showed and saying, this is our creation. It's been copied identically. And I remember my brother Aristos showed him the original and the copy dress. And then he showed him the pattern. And in the pattern that my brother had created, he'd made a mistake in the shoulder seam. There was a little notch that he said, you see this, Mr. Laddie? I slipped when I was cutting it, and I left this notch in the pattern. And he took the copy dress and ripped the seam open, showed him they had the same notch. He says, they've copied my mistake. Hugh Laddie was so impressed with this. He says, my dear boys, I see what you mean. He says, yes, they've stolen my work. And Hugh Laddie, although there was hardly any precedent in enforcing copyright in garment design, took it on, right? We then called a meeting of the trade at the Burness Hotel in Soho, and we said, we're Ariella Fashions, we're getting copied, we don't like it, we want to do something about it. Is it happening to you? All the hands went up. They appointed me as the chairman because I was the only one with a law degree, and I'm still chairman today. And I'm pleased to say that the law was changed in 1980 in a leading case in which I was an expert witness, and the law then established copyright protection for fashion design. That was, I can tell you now, almost exclusively through our doing through the FDPA. And now we also advise the government on the Copyright Designs and Patents Act 1988, where we pointed out that copyright only protects the two-dimensional design. It didn't protect the 3D garment. And there was an interesting case of the rain cozy, which is poor woman designed a rain cozy and made it and sold it to BHS. BHS then copied it and sold hundreds of thousands of them. She sued them, but she didn't have a sketch drawing. All she had was the prototype garment, and there was no law to protect that. And the Copyright Designs and Patents Act changed the law, creating a design right which now protects 3D designs. So our little contribution to copyright law has given our young designers the ability now to profit from their originality. And the last thing we've done is, I think at the beginning, although I've eased off now, we were one of the few, I certainly was the most vociferous member of the BFC to talk against anorexic models on our catwalks, which is something I'm passionate about. I think it's a bad role model for our young girls, and I'm pleased to see that once again there's a body now looking at it, a government body now looking at the whole aspect of prohibiting skeletal models from appearing on our catwalks, which I believe in. So far as Ariella is concerned, my pride and joy is that we are still here after 50 years. We're still buoyant, and we're once again full of energy and enthusiasm with all the young blood that's come into the business, looking at really building the brand and expanding it.
And Ariella is a recipient of the Queen's Award for Export Achievement.
We've learned in Punch magazine in the sort of early 70s described Ariella as the power in Carnaby Street. In the 80s, we won the Clothing Export Council Award for Exports. In the 90s, we won the UK Fashion Export Award for high octane glamour. In the 90s, we won the UKFT Award for Exports again, plus the Queen's Award for Outstanding Export Achievement. And then in 2010, we won the HSBC Business Thinking competition for the London region. So we've won a major award in every one of our 5 decades.
AC, thank you so much for sharing with us. It's been a fascinating experience. Thank you.
Okay.